The Whitmore house had stood at the edge of Ravenbrook for nearly a century, its narrow frame hunched forward as if exhausted by the weight of what it had seen. Locals avoided walking past it after sunset. Children crossed the street when they came near. Even adults lowered their voices as though the house itself might be listening. Everyone in town knew one thing for certain. The attic door had never been opened. Not in 15 years. When Clara Whitmore returned to Ravenbrook after receiving news of her father's sudden death, she felt something twist in her chest long before she reached the house. The road leading up to it was quiet, too quiet. No birds, no wind, just the crunch of gravel beneath her tires and the looming silhouette of the house waiting at the end. She parked the car and sat there longer than necessary, hands still gripping the steering wheel. The house looked smaller than she remembered, yet somehow more threatening. Its windows were dark like hollow eyes watching her every move. Her father, Edgar Whitmore, had lived alone since her mother vanished. A heart attack, the police had said, natural causes. But Clara didn't believe in coincidences, especially not in this house. She stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and something else she couldn't place. A faint metallic scent lingered beneath the mustiness, sharp enough to make her nose sting. The front door shut behind her with a dull thud, and for a moment she imagined she heard a lock clicking into place. The house groaned softly, settling around her. Every room was exactly as she remembered, frozen in time. The old couch sagging in the living room, the crooked picture frames, her mother's porcelain clock still sitting on the mantel stopped at 2:17 a.m., the hour her mother disappeared. Clara swallowed hard. She told herself she was here to pack things up, to sell the house, to move on. But deep down, she knew that wasn't true. Her eyes drifted upward. The staircase to the second floor creaked under her weight, each step sounding like a warning. Halfway up, she stopped. Above her, barely visible in the dim light, was the narrow staircase leading to the attic. And at the top of it, the door. It was small, reinforced with iron brackets, and fitted with a heavy deadbolt. Scratches ran along the wood, long, jagged marks that hadn't been there when she was a child. They looked recent, deep. Desperate. Clara's heart pounded. Her father had always been strict about the attic. As a child, she'd once tried to climb the stairs out of curiosity. He'd grabbed her arm so hard it left bruises. "Never go up there," he'd shouted. Never. She had never seen that look in his eyes before, or since. That night, Clara unpacked in her old bedroom. Sleep didn't come easily. The silence felt unnatural, broken only by the ticking of the clock downstairs. Every shadow in the room seemed to shift when she wasn't looking. Sometime after midnight, she heard it, a sound from above. At first, she thought it was the house settling, but then it came again, a slow, dragging noise, followed by a faint thump. Her breath caught. She sat up in bed, listening. The sound stopped, leaving behind a silence so heavy it pressed against her ears. She told herself it was nothing. Old houses made noise. Then she heard it again. This time it was closer, a muffled scrape like fingernails against wood. Clara's pulse raced as she stared at the ceiling. The attic was directly above her room. Someone was up there. Her body froze. Logic screamed that it was impossible. Her father was dead. The police had confirmed it. No one else lived in the house. And yet, a soft, strained sound drifted down through the ceiling, almost like a whisper, almost like a plea. She didn't sleep at all that night. By morning, sunlight crept through the curtains, offering little comfort. Clara brewed coffee with shaking hands, her eyes darting toward the ceiling every few seconds. She tried to distract herself by sorting through her father's study. Papers were stacked neatly on the desk, bills paid on time, everything meticulously organized. Too organized. Then she opened the bottom drawer. Inside, wrapped in an old cloth, was a key. It was large, heavy, and cold to the touch. Dark stains marked the metal, dried and brownish red. Blood. Her stomach turned. The cloth it was wrapped in appeared to be a torn piece of fabric, floral patterned, faded with age. Clara recognized it instantly. It had once been part of her mother's dress. Her hands trembled as she dropped the key back into the drawer. Her heart hammered against her ribs as pieces of memory began clicking into place. The locked attic, her mother's disappearance, her father's violent fear whenever she asked questions, the scratches on the attic door, the sound in the night. Whatever her father had been hiding, it wasn't just a secret. It was a crime. As she climbed the stairs again, she stopped at the attic landing. The door loomed before her, silent now, innocent-looking despite the scars etched into its surface. Clara raised her hand, hesitating inches from the lock. Then, from the other side of the door, she heard a breath, slow, ragged, alive. And for the first time, Clara understood why nobody had dared to enter the attic. Because some doors are locked not to keep people out, but to keep the truth trapped inside. Clara did not touch the attic door for the rest of that morning. She stood at the foot of the narrow staircase, staring up at it as though it were staring back. The breath she had heard on the other side still echoed in her mind. No matter how hard she tried to rationalize it, her instinct screamed that someone, something was still alive behind that wood. By noon, fear turned into something sharper. Determination. She called the one person who had been tied to this house longer than anyone else outside her family, Detective Marcus Hale. Marcus had been the lead investigator on her mother's disappearance 15 years ago. He was older now, with gray at his temples and weariness behind his eyes. But when he arrived an hour later, Clara could tell he still carried the weight of every unsolved case. The moment he stepped inside the Whitmore house, his expression changed. "It still smells the same," he muttered. "Smells like what?" Clara asked. "Like something unfinished." She led him to the staircase. When Marcus saw the scratches on the attic door, his jaw tightened. "These weren't here before," he said. "I would have remembered." Clara pulled the key from her pocket. "I found this in my father's desk, wrapped in my mother's dress." Marcus didn't say anything for a long moment. He took the key, examined the dried blood, then looked up at the door again. "You heard something last night?" he asked. "Yes," she whispered. "Someone breathing, moving." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then we're not opening this alone." He radioed for backup. As they waited, the silence grew unbearable. Every creak from upstairs made Clara flinch. Finally, 2 officers arrived, along with a forensic technician. Marcus placed a hand on Clara's shoulder. "You don't have to watch," he said. "I do. Whatever's up there, it started with my family." The key slid into the lock with a dull metallic scrape. Marcus twisted it slowly. The deadbolt gave way with a heavy clunk that echoed through the house like a gunshot. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Then Marcus pushed. The door creaked open just enough to release a wave of cold, stale air. It smelled of rot and rust and something sickly sweet underneath. The attic was dark. One of the officers flicked on a flashlight. The beam cut through thick dust, illuminating old furniture stacked haphazardly against the walls. A broken rocking chair, trunks, boxes of forgotten belongings, and something else. Something that didn't belong. A heavy chain was bolted into the floor. Clara gasped as the light followed it. The chain led to a thick iron collar lying open on the boards, human-sized. Marcus stepped forward carefully. The floor groaned beneath his weight. He knelt beside the chain, running a gloved hand over the rusted metal. "Someone was kept here," he said quietly. for a long time. The forensic tech moved deeper into the attic, shining her light into the shadows. Then she suddenly froze. "Sir," she voice trembled, "you need to see this." Behind a stack of crates lay something white. Bones. Not animal. Human. Small. Fragile. Tangled together as if someone had curled up and never gotten back up again. Clara's knees gave out. One of the officers caught her before she hit the floor. "No! No! No!" But it wasn't just one set of bones. There were more. 3, 4, 5. Each one positioned differently, like they had died alone. Marcus swallowed hard. My God! He had seen crime scenes before, horrific ones, but something about this, the secrecy, the isolation, the sheer cruelty of it made his stomach turn. "Your father," he said slowly, "he didn't just hide something up here." Clara stared at the remains, tears streaming down her face. "He hid people." As the team carefully photographed and collected evidence, Marcus noticed something strange. One wall didn't match the others. The wood was newer, cleaner, like it had been installed later. "Hold on," he said. He pressed against it. It moved. The false wall slid aside with a groan, revealing a narrow opening. And from inside it came a sound, a weak, broken whimper. Clara's breath caught in her throat. That's what I heard." Marcus motioned for everyone to be quiet. He approached the opening, flashlight trembling slightly in his hand. "Hello?" he called softly. "Can you hear me?" The whimper turned into a rasping breath. "Yes," he said barely audibly. "I'm here." Marcus pulled the wall fully aside. Behind it was a tiny hidden room, no bigger than a closet. The air inside was foul. The floor was littered with old blankets, empty bowls, and filthy rags. And in the corner, a woman. Her hair was long and matted. Her skin was pale, almost translucent. Her eyes were sunken, but they widened in terror when the light hit her. "Please, don't let him come back." Clara stumbled forward. "Mom?" The woman stared at her. Recognition flickered in her eyes. "Clara!" And then she collapsed. The secret in the attic was no longer just a memory. It was alive, and it was about to tear Ravenbrook apart. The paramedics rushed through the Whitmore house, their boots pounding across the old wooden floors as they carried Clara's mother down the stairs on a stretcher. Oxygen hissed. IV lines were connected. Her chest rose in shallow, fragile breaths. Clara followed closely, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold on to the railing. For 15 years, she had believed her mother was dead. Now, she was alive, and she had been living in hell. As the ambulance doors closed, Detective Marcus Hale stood beside Clara, his face grim. "Whoever did this didn't just lock her away," he said quietly. "They built a prison." Clara's voice was hollow. "It was my father." Marcus nodded. Inside the house, the forensic team continued working in the attic. Every new discovery made the truth more horrifying. Food bowls shoved through a hole in the wall, a crude system of ropes and pulleys, a camera pointed into the hidden room. Edgar Whitmore had been watching his captive, studying her, controlling her. The remains in the attic told the rest of the story. Runaways, missing women, people nobody had noticed were gone. He had chosen them because no one would come looking. When Clara was finally allowed into the hospital room, her mother lay weak and pale beneath white sheets. Her eyes fluttered open when she felt Clara's touch. "My baby," she whispered. Clara collapsed beside the bed, tears pouring freely. "Mom, I'm here. You're safe now." Her mother's gaze drifted toward the door. He's gone?" she asked fearfully. "Yes," Clara said. "He's dead." A long, shuddering breath escaped her mother's lips. "Then it's over." But it wasn't. Marcus soon learned Edgar Whitmore hadn't died of natural causes. The medical examiner confirmed it. There was a puncture wound in his neck. Someone had poisoned him. Someone inside the house. "Your mother," Marcus said carefully when Clara returned to the station, "she had access to him." Clara stared at him in disbelief. "No," she whispered, "she wouldn't." But deep down, she knew. Her mother had been starving, beaten, trapped for years. When Edgar collapsed, she must have realized it was her only chance, freedom or death. "She killed him," Clara said softly. Marcus nodded. "And the law will likely see it as self-defense." But Clara's mind wasn't on justice. It was on something far more disturbing. "If my mother was alive all this time, why did he let me stay in the house?" she asked. Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?" "He could have killed me, or taken me too, but he didn't." Marcus went still. "Because he didn't see you as a victim," he said. Clara swallowed. "He saw me as his daughter." And that terrified her. In the days that followed, Ravenbrook became a media circus. News vans lined the street. Reporters called the Whitmore house the most horrific crime scene the town had ever known. The attic was boarded up. The house was condemned. But Clara couldn't shake the feeling that something was still unfinished. One night, as she sat alone in a hotel room, her phone buzzed. An unknown number. A text message appeared. He wasn't the only one. Her blood ran cold. Before she could respond, another message arrived. You should never have opened the attic. Something was still out there, and it knew her name. Clara stared at the glowing screen of her phone, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. He wasn't the only one. The words echoed in her mind like a whisper from the dark. Her father had done unspeakable things, but someone else had known. Someone else had helped him. Or watched. Her fingers trembled as she typed back. "Who is this?" The typing bubble appeared, then vanished. Her phone rang. She answered it on instinct. "You should never have gone into that attic," a man's voice said softly. Clara froze. "Who are you?" "He trusted me," the voice replied. "Your father. He believed in me, and you destroyed everything." The line went dead. Within hours, Detective Marcus Hale had traced the call to a burner phone, but that didn't matter because the threat was real. Someone connected to Edgar Whitmore was still alive, and they were angry. Marcus dug through old case files and property records. It didn't take long to find what Edgar had hidden. There was a second building on the Whitmore land, an old storm cellar buried deep in the woods behind the house. They went there at dawn. The door was hidden beneath overgrown vines and broken branches. When Marcus forced it open, the stench inside nearly made them gag. Down below, they found proof. Edgar had not worked alone. There were journals, videos, names, men who paid him to disappear people, and one name was circled again and again. Dr. Alan Mercer, a respected psychiatrist and Edgar's closest friend. Marcus felt a chill. Mercer had evaluated dozens of missing persons over the years. He had chosen them. Clara felt sick. The man who comforted families on television was a monster behind closed doors. They found him that night. Mercer was waiting. "You took away my life's work," he told Clara calmly as officers surrounded him. "I stopped you," she said. Mercer smiled. "You freed something far worse." The truth was finally exposed. Edgar had been the jailer, Mercer had been the hunter, and the attic was only one of many. When Mercer was led away in handcuffs, Ravenbrook finally breathed again. The secrets were gone. The doors were open, and Clara stood outside the Whitmore house one last time, watching it burn as the fire department destroyed it forever. Some places should never exist. Some secrets should never be kept. And some doors are meant to be broken.